Counselor Accents Podcast. Two school counselors who love their jobs. Oh, and they happen to have Southern accents too. Bless their hearts.
I'm Laura Rancourt.
And I am Kim Crumbly. And together we are Counselor Accents.
We have a very dear friend with us. It is such a treat to get to have Dr. Maureen Stewart with us. Ooh. And Kim, I would like it if you would call her Dr. Stewart throughout this podcast.
She literally just texted me and said you needed to call her doctor, but we were closer in relationship.
Oh, no. Yeah. Hi, you two. It's always so great to see you. And you just both make me smile, laugh. I'm so honored to be with you right now.
Well, let me just say we love you. And I really mean that we love you. When we see you, just are the kind of person that makes everybody feel good that's around you. So I cannot imagine having you as a professor, but we just love, and she's kind of our boss.
Yeah, not really.
Not even.
Like I'm like the pushover boss, right?
She is the boss, and she is it doesn't matter what stupid thing that we do.
And we have done a lot. We do a lot.
No. I can't imagine the two of you.
So sweet. We just love you.
Tell you, you were with me a few weeks ago because I was in Vermont teaching my grad students in a class called Internship, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about. And I have to tell you, one of my students, you joined my class last year via Zoom at Northern Vermont University. And you spoke with my fieldwork students, which is the practicum prior to internship. Lo and behold, now I'm actually face-to-face. I was in person with my students, which was just fantastic at the end of August. And one of them was talking about both of you because she follows you on Facebook and she listens to your podcast. I'm like, yes, you gotta keep it. So you are continuing to reach the rural pockets of Vermont, which I'm so thankful for. So I'm like,
how exciting.
Yeah.
I love that.
And you brought up internship, and I think it's so interesting because out of all of the things that we've talked about, internship is the number one most requested topic, and we've never done this topic. And we wanted to make it relevant to not only counselors that are going into the profession, but also veteran counselors. And we knew that you were the person for this job because just like you said, you do teach courses at Northern Vermont University. And right now it just so happens internship is one of the courses that you're working on. So it's perfect. We didn't even know that. We just knew you were
we were just like, well, we've got to talk to Maureen and get some more, go to the resource on this, the source, because it like Laura said, we just need some insight. So that's what we wanted to talk to you about is helping our listeners that may be going into internship. But what is, first of all, is there anything that we've not said about you that you'd like to say about yourself? Tell us about a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, well, so I'm currently in Colorado, but I am teaching in Vermont. The pandemic was a situation where I started with Northern Vermont University last year, and because of the pandemic, I was teaching my classes through Zoom, and it didn't make sense. Obviously, it wasn't safe for us to travel there. So let's see. Where do I begin? I did my undergrad and grad in New England, and then 25 years ago, we did move here to Colorado. And as I know you both with NC WIT, so obviously I've been with NC WIT for a number of years as a consultant. And then last year, 2020, I retired 26 years as a school counselor in 4 high schools, 2 in Vermont and 2 in Colorado. So this Vermont thing just keeps coming back. And for me to when the position became available, I felt like, I'm going home. I'm going home to Vermont, which feels really good. I did my doctorate here in Colorado. My doctorate was in leadership and educational equity at University of Colorado, Denver. And my dissertation work was on social emotional learning initiatives and the role of the school counselor in 2 different elementary schools. So like all things education, all things school counseling. And, I just love the profession. And I think about internship in particular, in that there is a need not only for students who are interns now or becoming interns to get some, to have some structure and some guidelines, but it's also important for the supervisors. We talk about supervision in counseling, and it's just as important for supervisors of interns to also have structure and guidance. And I think about, ASCA, I just lean heavily on all things ASCA because there's a lot of material with ASCA in terms of supporting supervisors and supporting interns in this process of professional development. And so I kind of jumped from me right back into internship, which is what I just love talking about. And I think overall, it's just like we're lifelong learners, right? As school counselors. And that's what I love about the profession so much. So whether you're an intern just starting, or if you're someone who's taking on an intern, I remember one of my colleagues at one of my high schools in a neighboring high school, she said, it's our duty to have interns, our professional duty to take interns on, because I know sometimes people feel like, okay, my plate is full. I don't know if I have the bandwidth, or I need the help, but there's a lot of responsibility that goes with having an intern in your school. And I appreciate that, us asking those questions of ourselves, like, can I do this justice? Can I help develop this intern in a way that they'll be prepared with the skills to jump right into a school setting? But honestly, Kim and Laura, you tell me if you can think back to your internship experience and then, where you are now. I know for me personally, there's every year there's growth. Every year I'm learning something new. So the internship is an opportunity, I feel, to learn and understand the policies and programs and the role of the school counselor, but then to get that support around who can I go to when I have questions, who can I seek out, hopefully my site supervisor, but maybe there are other mentors along the way I can reach out to. So tell me, like, what comes to your mind, both of you, when you think about your internship experience, when you were an intern as a school counselor?
Kim, go ahead. Tell about your internship.
Were you her supervisor, Laura?
Oh, no,
I would really tear her up. I would love the opportunity to dog her if she were. I really would need to just at some point write a book probably about my counseling journey. But part of that story would probably be not a lot of interning going on, not a lot of internship. It was more along, I don't know if I fell through a crack, but it was more along the lines of go see the school counselor where you're at. I never left my job where I was, which was a special ed teacher at that time at the high school. What about you, Laura?
Well, I joke about you, but really mine wasn't that much better. But I did part of mine here in Alabama and then part in Tennessee. And, part we had to do at an elementary or middle school, and then the other part at a high school. So, I got my hours, but it wasn't like the real experience.
Right.
No supervisor. I never had a supervisor to visit or talk to me in person. It was just more like, I had the people helping me at my school and they turned in my stuff. So that's how
we're all going to get our school counseling privileges revoked. I hope that you know.
No.
I did the hours.
Yes.
It just was in a way that I didn't find what I didn't even know what to ask or what to do.
Yeah.
And things have changed. And I think ASCA has recognized that supervisors need support.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of coursework around being a supervisor of an intern. And so there's a huge need. And then of course the interns, but I think about the skill set. It's an internship is just that baseline preparation, but where do you know how to find your answers? Do you know where to go to? And I think about when I was in Vermont back in August teaching my in-person classes, in the beginning of my career, I was school counselor in 2 different high schools in Vermont. And I'm 57 years old, and my mentors at the time were probably about my age now. And I had the opportunity to see them recently in Vermont. And these are 2 women, Nancy and Doris. And I tell you, what got us through, what got me through, and it wasn't even an internship. It was my first year. It was humor. It was laughter. It was them finding, humor in the everyday nuances of situations. And I had the opportunity to have dinner with them. And, they're in their mid 70s now. And we were talking about way back when we were all together in the high school. And they were sharing stories about, still different students that, do you remember this student? Do you remember that student? And, this profession, we make a difference and we don't even realize. I know we realize that, but sometimes just those small acts of walking down the hallway or greeting someone in the parking lot or answering that phone call or responding or just saying hello. And it was just really neat to be with them recently because they were my mentors. They were the 2 women that helped guide me in the beginning stages of my career as a school counselor. So it was after I earned my degree. And I think internship is just that springboard to hopefully landing the interview and then the first job. And then interns, be patient with yourself and be patient in the first few years and beyond, because every year is a different year and every year has different issues that are presented.
Your own internship, was it? You had the mentors. I think mentorship, when you were talking about that, I was just thinking school counselors, listen, find that mentor, even no matter what stage you're at, have somebody that you bounce ideas off that's gone there before maybe. Right. But how was your internship?
Well, my internship was similar to yours. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what, just give me anything. I would meet with some students individually. There was a little bit of guidance, and we used the term guidance in those days, and now we don't use guidance counselor anymore.
We were called guidance counselors.
We were guidance. It was the guy. Now it's school counseling. So that's the other, topic of, we look at data, we make decisions. But my internship was just to get the experience of being in a school, understanding the culture and climate of a school, and understanding generally speaking, what some of the issues that come to the school counseling office. But I think about, I was asking my friends, mentors, when I saw them recently, what I was asking them, like, what advice would you give to my interns who I'm now teaching? And they said, they need to hear the stories. They need to hear the kinds of situations and experiences that counselors have, what a typical day is like. They need to have someone talk to them about what it's like and how do you do that? How do you do that in an hour session? Or you could go, there's so many stories. And I think that's what's super exciting about the profession also, is that every day is a brand, there's so many different challenges, and we're problem solvers, and we believe in education. And but I think that mentorship is my internship similar to yours. I don't remember hardly like where I was or what I was doing, but it's my early years in my career, and every year, all 26 years, every year was always a learning year.
I even told my principal, I'm your new school counselor. I'm your new guidance counselor back in the day, and I don't know what I'm doing. And thank heavens, he said, and I'm your principal, and new principal, and I don't know what I'm doing. We've been together now for all these years, and we have both said we're neither one leaving, without really good heads up to the other, because, it's kind of been a team thing coming in you together.
Right. And what the other thing, I remember, I don't know, I think I shared with you both this app that's called Clubhouse. It's like a podcast kind of app, whatever. And I don't know if you've ever been on it, but you can sort of raise your hand on the app and you can get kind of invited up to the top level or whatever. And I was out of my element. I don't even know what platform it was, but I was I was really worried about my counseling students because here it was a pandemic and I was teaching through Zoom. I was teaching a lab 1 counseling class. And I said, what can I tell? Any advice to give these grad students? And they said, and of course it's common sense, keep working on your communication skills, keep working on networking and fine tuning those communication skills. And that could be email, text, your humor, Kim, with your principal. That was a bond that the two of you had because you knew you have that, I'm sure, that connection.
That's so good what you're talking about there with the communication. And Laura and I talk a lot about leadership and leadership styles, and to be able to be a leader and yet to communicate effectively, and how you communicate with others and your attitude and and also your servitude, being that servant leader, like where I'm willing to go that extra mile for you, and earn that respect. So that communication is huge.
Right. And trust.
Yeah.
And there's also those skills. So I love working with my interns and also I'm sure it's where you are, but there's a huge need. The demand is tremendous for school counselors and clinical mental health counselors across the board. So all of my interns are also in a unique position where they're actually full-time employees of the schools. They are on, sort of provisional licensure. So they're thrown right in. So not just like the, 600 hours or 300, they're full-time. And they're learning. So the support, they have the site supervisor, they have me. Once I am out there again in Vermont, which will be happening next week, it looks like, I do look forward to visiting each of my students at their school. And I said, all I want is a tour of your building initially, just an informal tour. Show me where the cafeteria is, show me the library, show me what it looks like. I want to see, get a sense. And then later on, we'll do that formal visit with their site supervisor, because the partnership between my role as the counselor educator at the university, I need that site supervisor. I need to be a partner with that site supervisor so I know what kinds of needs each of the students, the schools have, so I can bring those into the classroom when we meet. I think the students who are asking these questions of both of you, they're probably in a situation where they want to make the most of their internship or maybe even possibly find an internship. Are those the types of questions that you're getting, or what sort of queries are going with internship in general?
Well, a lot of what you're talking about, we've gotten some specific questions about when they start their internship, how do they bring value while still balancing the fact that they're new? A lot of questions about, well, let's just start there. How do they bring value to their site supervisor?
Okay. Well, I think of some interns I have had in the past, and I think of one in particular who was, or one or two are my favorite, and one in particular, she helped come up with solutions to, I don't want to say simple issues, but issues that just had to do with operational sides of things, such as how can we develop a system to get students to come into the postgrad center? Or how can we develop an organized system to help gather the data? So she took the initiative. And so I think interns take the initiative, ask. And actually, I told my interns in my schools, please knock on my door and ask if you can come in, because I might forget that you're hoping to be part of a family meeting or individual or group meeting, because as school counselors, our days do fly by and we may forget that the intern is seeking that experience. So sort of not pushing, but really advocating for yourself, saying, hey, do you mind if I sit in on this meeting? Oh, thank you for asking. Yes, I do want, is it okay, mom, dad, student permission? Yes, absolutely. So take that initiative. Don't be afraid to ask. And look for opportunities that you can help solve some problems within the school counseling office. And it can be administrative. It can be, can I help gather the data on the last college information night? Would you like me to come up with a pre and post survey? Would you like me to help get some of these students when I look at the attendance and meet with them individually? Because sometimes when we're the school counselor supervisor or just school counselor, we're also, our wheels are spinning. I was trying to manage our own caseload. So I think taking the initiative, trying to look for ways where you can develop your own sort of little project within the internship experience, because that's something that you'll bring to an interview in the future, saying, well, I was an intern at this school. These are the types of activities I did. My deliverable is, this is what I provided for that school experience. So don't be afraid to ask. Yeah,
that's really good.
That's such a good tip for both the intern and the site supervisor, because I can see, like, as a site supervisor, I would never want to hurt anybody's feelings, but you do get caught up in your day and you can forget, and then you wouldn't want them to feel overlooked. So just asking to be a part of it.
Right. Asking.
I think that's good advice for new counselors too, if we can slip this in there for those meetings that might be happening at the school, just to ask your administrator, hey, do you care if I'm a part of this?
Right.
Because they may not think.
Right.
They may not think. And it's also that leadership side of school counseling that I think we're looked upon as leaders, but we're not in that traditional role of the principal or the assistant principal, so we are influential leaders, and we do have a pulse on so many of the stakeholders, the students, the parents, the faculty, so that's what I love about the profession. It's like, just get involved with something, find a project, take the initiative. The other thing is, oh my God, if I had a penny for every mistake I made, we all make mistakes. And I try to share as many of the mistakes, maybe not the super embarrassing one. No, those are the best ones actually, but we all make mistakes. And I try to share with my students, these are some of the mistakes I made early on, or even later on in my career. And I'm sharing these stories because I don't want to make that same mistake, learn from what I did wrong and being aware. And so I think that self-awareness is important for all of us throughout our entire life, career. I mean, as counselors, of course, we need to be self-aware, but no, we really do need to be self-aware of how we're coming across to others. And what can we do to change if there is something to change?
That's really good, because when we talk about leaders, that bull leadership type, and we have ran into new counselors who I don't know, maybe are should I say pushy? Is that
they are pushy? It's like they're overcompensating for their newness, maybe.
Yeah.
And they're not self-aware that they're really rubbing people the wrong way. Instead of, they might have a great, and we have said this, the folks that we know that they really are, it's like they're burning, people are just not responding to them. And it's because they're coming on,
too strong.
I don't know, I guess so, too strong. And they're not self-aware that that's what's going on. And we're like, they're great. You've got to be, I don't know. We're like confident enough to say, we think you're doing great, but we can see that you are coming across to other folks. And how do you address that as a supervisor?
Well, so I'm going to show you, and I know you have access to this, but ASCA does have this Making Supervision Work book. Okay. And it speaks directly that supervisors do need to have the framework to provide feedback, just as much as the interns need to receive that feedback. And I think sometimes, it can be difficult for people to be evaluators of others. So building the confidence in the supervision side of things. And so that's that partnership between my role and the site supervisor. It's like there's, a checklist and evaluation. These are the expectations we have for a student to become licensed as a school counselor. But part of it is critical that the site supervisor does provide feedback to the intern. Now, once someone's employed, and then they're in that role, how often do we have possibly an administrator who is our evaluator, possibly someone who's an assistant principal or a principal who doesn't have that school? I don't know if either of you have a director of counseling who might be. You do. You both do. Oh, you're fortunate. Because
Laura and I both have learned from a really great lady. She's amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, you're mentioning something else came to mind. When I was at the airport, I just was looking for some reading material, and it's a book that just talks about like general career development, just in a very general way, not school counseling specific. But there was a piece of it that you were mentioning before. It's like, we need to be politically savvy. It doesn't mean that we don't need to know about politics per se, but we need to know how to read and know who those influencers are, and to become aware of those around us, and know how to create buy-in. Those are skills that take time.
And how do you teach that? I mean, it's like it's really hard because I can see it sometimes with folks who've observed me, and I can see it that you're not reading the room, or you're not, and it's really hard to say.
Yeah, it is.
Listen a little bit more and talk a little bit less.
Yeah.
Hard to say those things.
Yeah.
Answer this question. Why should I, as a school counselor, what will I gain from taking an intern? What do I gain?
I have learned so much from all of the interns that I've taken on, because they've taught me anything from tech skills to Google, whatever, forms, to, for me, to be reflective and self-aware of my own style. And when the interns would, sit in and listen to a meeting I would have, or sit in and observe, or help share in the class presentation, I grew as a professional just by taking on the intern. So for me, whenever I've had the interns, I felt like it was a shot in the arm for me professionally, just to get that boost on, we can come complacent I could come complacent in my work. And so it was maybe challenging at times, time-wise, like the time scheduling of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the benefit, of course, far outweighs, any commitment that goes into it. And it's also just working with we need counselors, we need school counselors, we need professional school counselors across the country. I mean, the demand is tremendous, not just in Vermont, but I'm sure it's in your state as well.
It really is.
I mean, and it's important. And again, I think it's that, I know the interns I have great relationships with them now, and they're professional school counselors, and it's that continuing mentorship. So like, as I was speaking to the two, Nancy and Doris in Vermont, who are in their mid-70s, they're still my mentors. I still connect with them. And that's what's so great about the profession. And what I love also, I have to tell you, I have almost 50% men, 50% women in my classes in the school counseling.
Oh, that's great.
So more,
I'm a little surprised.
I think, men and all genders are looking at this as a really viable career option, where, people can make a big difference in our young students, and with families as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just love the profession, but I think there's work that has to be done continuously, like just any kind of lifelong learning, ongoing professional development work. Like I know, ASCA has those university specialist certification programs. Those are fantastic. And for even current counselors, they can log on and develop, get some CEU credits, which might obviously help them with their own personal advancement, say in salary, whatever. But it's also like, oh, I need to stay current on trends and what's happening in education.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on a similar note, if you don't care, for me to interject a question here? What about the supervisor that may be having some apprehension about bringing somebody in because maybe they don't remember all the theories and the theorists, and they may not ascribe to a certain type of counseling? What would you say to that counselor?
To the supervisor?
Yeah, the
counselor?
supervisor. Uh-huh.
So it sounds like they might be apprehensive, or they may not be 100% aligned, or maybe it's been a while since they've been in school themselves and they aren't quite sure they will have the skills to support a future counselor. Well, I would say, number one, give it a try, and also same thing, do what I did, try to find ways to develop professionally, to learn more, and sort of turn the table. Okay, intern, share with me what's happening. And that's how I first got into this. This is about, let's see, maybe almost 10 years ago, when I had interns in my school. This is prior to me working on my doctorate, prior to me teaching at another university in school counseling. I would ask them, what are you learning in your graduate program at your schools? Tell me what you're learning. And they would share with me some of the theorists, some of the topics that the instructors like me were teaching them. And that is what motivated me to go back to school, to then, understand more of what are the students getting, so I can not only support them in the school, but also be a part of it in the classroom side of things. But I think same thing, to being part of members, being part of state organizations, having state, serving on, committees or boards, attending meetings, stay involved with what's happening in your state and community, because it's important, and it's going to help offer like a more quality, school counseling comprehensive program overall, if the supervisors are also staying current on trends.
And Laura, I can see that kind of like companies coming over and you get your house in order.
Uh-huh.
I can see interns come and let me practice and freshen up. And I think that would be a big bonus and I think it would be, it's for I'm speaking for listeners, but I would think that they would walk away going, I know.
It's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Kim, that's exactly what happened to me. So this is, I was under that guidance counselor world, right, for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it was one of my interns a long time ago. And then I have to tell you, she was saying, there's this thing called ASCA. I'm like, what's ASCA? And this is probably 15, 16 years ago. And so I'm like, what's ASCA? Data, no, I was a guidance counselor.
Yes.
So by having her working with me, she was teaching me, and she helped me in the trajectory of my profession.
That
I
is
have to think.
How far we've come,
I know.
Which is another podcast that we want to do at some point. We talked to Russ Sabella when I hate to brag. I hate to brag, but when we were having dinner with Russ.
Oh, I know. I had that fear of missing. I had FOMO big time. I saw those photos. All of you were having a great time. But it made me so happy too.
I was wishing that you all were there. But, just him talking about the history of ASCA and at the very beginnings. And I'm like, wow, we've come so far. So it really is exciting. And I would love to delve into that. And that, write it down, Laura, write it down. History of ASCA. Yeah.
And I think also we need coursework for supervisors. So one of the opportunities I'm looking at with the university where I'm working moving forward is offering a class on supervision for current school counselors who want extra support and just support on how can I make the internship experience valuable.
I don't even know of any PD is there PD?
I've seen through ASCA.
Okay.
And maybe it's at the conferences and stuff that.
I got you. That's great. But I think that would be a great, there's a great opportunity.
There's
obviously.
a need. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about what both of you are doing with Counselor Accents and your amazing Facebook group and this podcast. And then also think about the other work we do when we network with other counselors across the country with NC
Yeah.
WID. And we kind of have like just built in PD anyway, because we hear what other schools and counselors are doing.
Oh, I
So
tell
we're
you.
getting that
Yeah.
naturally, right?
What would you say if I'm going to really, really put you on the spot here?
Okay. Uh-oh.
Because I know you and you love being on the spot. You're okay. Give it.
Here we
If
go.
I said, give me 3 mistakes that you see interns make, that's a hard one because we've talked about mistakes and it's okay to make mistakes. But I could just hear interns, if we could prevent that, or they're thinking, what would 3 things that you think would be mistakes that you see interns make?
I think, I guess, unwillingness to take a risk. And if that risk means, and I don't know if I think it's part of the development, but I think, finding comfort by not stepping out of their comfort zone. Like, a mistake would be not stepping out of your comfort zone. So if that comfort zone is approaching maybe a teacher to ask about a student, that could be an intimidating thing. I know I had an intern who had to approach a teacher who had a very sort of cold demeanor, and she was really worried about asking him a certain question about a student. But you have to break through that. So stepping out of the comfort zone.
That's good.
Asking questions. And again, stepping out of the comfort zone just by, maybe it's attending an evening activity, the theater or the volleyball game, or, helping any of the administrative staff with just some administrators, because those are our stakeholders as well. Yeah. So everyone is that school community. It's not just the counseling office working in isolation. It's everyone that works together in that community. So I think that number 1, or number 2, so it's comfort zone number 1. Number 2, we gotta laugh. We have to find humor, right? Yeah. And I want to ask you too, how did you get to be so funny? But that's like a question, like at the end. We were always funny, like since birth, like growing up.
We were born here. We were born.
And how did you find each other? But anyway, I'm reversing the question. But I think finding humor in the small things that happen in our day, and telling and sharing and being vulnerable, I think is the third. It's okay to be vulnerable. So for instance, this morning, can I tell you something that would be something I would tell my students and colleagues if I were to go into school tomorrow? This morning, we went to play pickleball. And it was one of the first times we've ever played. Either of you ever played pickleball? Do you know what it is?
Oh.
It's like a combination of tennis and ping pong.
Okay.
Like it's like ping pong with bigger. We're newbies at it. We were with another couple. We were at these courts nearby. There are some people who are really competitive pickleball players. So we weren't keeping score correctly. We were just like, it was the ball, So then someone's like, ooh, they said non-pickleball warning, alert, non-pickleball players. I'm like, we're new to this. So, sharing stories of vulnerability, of, making yourself human with your students, with your teachers, with your parents.
Oh, that's good.
Developing the connection. And I think maybe that's like the third or fourth thing is I think it's just really important to try to find a way to connect, and don't be afraid. Don't feel like you have to have all the answers, because the answers do come from, we want them to come from the student or the parent anyway. We sometimes, I think, are looked upon to have the answers, and we have to know to turn that table and let the student or the parent or the teacher come up with the answers, the solutions to the issue at hand. So I went beyond the 3.
That's so good.
I can't count.
We love lists. So that's That's really good. I want to add for just what I sometimes have seen will take you down a road you don't want to go down is, and this has not been with school counselors, it's been more with student teachers, but not willing to just not willing to work, not willing to, like would, stand by a student may have had an accident, spilt the milk or whatever in the cafeteria. Yeah. I'm telling you, there are people watching to see if you think that's your job. And we look at that and we talk about that. You may not know that, but we're looking at that student teacher to see if you're willing to do what it takes. Go ahead.
If you see a wrapper on the floor in the hallway, are you picking it up? Or are you waiting for someone else? Yeah. And I think, and you brought up another really good point that hopefully interns would always go to their site supervisor if they're ever in a sticky situation, but beginning counselors, veteran counselors, don't make difficult decisions in isolation. Make sure you always reach out and find your colleague friend to hash things out. Wait 24 hours if it's an emotional issue, but if it's a crisis or a safety issue, don't go home at the end of the day. If there's something weighing on you, you just need to pick up the phone and call someone or call your principal or call your supervisor, because there's a lot of, these are people that are, we want to keep students safe and families safe. And if there are really difficult situations that come up, and we want to make sure our school counselors are protected also, and that they know they have the training to don't make decisions in isolation. You have the support of others to help with difficult situations. So it's a big responsibility being a school counselor. And it's also a super fun job, right? There's a lot of energy that comes with the profession, and creativity and opportunities to just develop your brand, right?
Yeah, to develop that program. I mean, it's more than just yourself. You're developing a whole program, and it may be with just a few other counselors, it may be by yourself, but you're absolutely right. You're given the freedom to develop that program. Yeah. And so it is a very rewarding job.
Well, I have a couple of more questions from some of our listeners. Let's talk about our counselors. We're in this place where some schools are in person, some schools are virtual, some schools start out in person and then go virtual. So we have a couple of interns who only have virtual experience, and they're concerned about securing a job having only worked virtually. So what would you say to those counselors?
I have two nieces, and one is currently a school counselor in Portland, Oregon, and one is a graduate student in school counseling in San Diego. And her internship last year, she was in New Jersey, and her internship was in California through Zoom. Yeah. And but it's the same. Don't worry, students, if that's been your experience, you've had to develop some skills that are going to carry you through, even when we are all back maybe to normal or the way things work. But you also have developed, and things may not go back to the way things were. And maybe it's better if they don't. Maybe there's opportunities to reach other students who are, maybe they're homebound. They can't get to school for whatever reason, not just pandemic, just other reasons. Now, these students who work through Zoom, they've developed their communication skills beyond what a veteran counselor who's only been face-to-face has done. And everyone has been in that situation. Yeah. I think we forget. Sometimes we feel like, am I the only one that's been in this Zoom world? And that's when I was on campus and in person, just not only the joy I felt was seeing people outside of a Zoom screen, like the full length, bodies, but them seeing each other too, like, oh my gosh, that's who you are. You're that person,
You're
it was just
shorter, you're taller,
yeah.
I have no idea. That's
I know. Like I'm really, 8'2" right now. Like you wouldn't know that, right?
That would be Laura. When you see her, you will be looking up.
We have so many people that ask us, say, I had no idea you were so tall. And I really don't either. I forget that I'm so tall. So
I know. And the thing that I've liked about Zoom with teaching my students is that I've been on that equal platform. We're all together. I'm not sitting at the front of the classroom, and
That's good.
So.
That's good.
But I think don't worry. They've had to develop the communication skills to be to get their messaging across. I know you both so well, I feel, and I have never met you in person, right?
That's so strange, isn't it?
So I know.
Yeah, you're right.
And so you can develop relationships with others in this platform. And you could, just like Jane Goodall, she did some work with, obviously chimpanzees and reading facial expressions and how we as humans have adapted and we're adapting and changing. She did a talk with NC Wade a while ago. We've had to adapt. We have adapted to reading facial cues and tone of voice or watching the body language just on a Zoom screen. So yeah, students, don't worry, you've got it. And when we do go back in person, they, when they go for their first interview, they'll say, I can adapt. I know I can because I did. Yeah.
That's good.
That is good. What's the best way for them to secure an internship site? Some of them have asked, do they need to send out resumes? Do they need to go through an interview process? How would you recommend they get the best internship site?
Okay. Yeah. So I would say definitely they want to have their resume built out. So they should, Laura and Kim, I definitely would receive so many emails at my school site. And the email would be the initial contact saying, this is who I am. This is where I attend school. I'm interested in this kind of at your school because I do their research, find out a little bit more about the school site, try to make that first initial email, just like a job, personal to the school and what they hope to have as a structure for their internship experience, whether it's, 6 weeks straight, 8-hour days, whatever it is, and attach their resume. It can be hard, but I also know that there are schools that are looking for interns because they need the help. If they have any connections within a school or school district, definitely take advantage of that.
Okay.
If I'm an intern and Laura, I want to work in your school and I know Kim, I'm like, Kim, will you let Laura know that I'm interested in, the networking and connections definitely help. And also every school is going to have a different feel and making sure they understand what the culture and climate of a school is to make sure it's the right fit also.
Good.
Hopefully the interns have had practical experience where they had field work where they were doing observations prior. So they maybe have developed some connections already. Getting involved with their state organization, the state school counseling program is a great way to also get connected as a grad student to then develop internship and then develop hopefully that first job later on.
So wise, so good. I've learned so much.
I got to go get me an intern.
Well, can you?
Round me up an intern.
Go get me an intern.
Go get me an intern. Can you get me somebody from Vermont?
No. I'm holding on to them. But I do know of a great maple syrup place I discovered. So I get ready. It's called Wyckoff Maple Syrup. They do their maple sugaring. So get ready for maple sugar season, which is in the spring.
Well, here we come.
Here we come. Yeah. What other questions did your interns have? Any others?
Okay. Do you have time for one more?
Yes.
Our intern. Okay. or from an intern. She wanted to know, this is kind of going into now the job search, but as you finish up your internship, what do you need to prepare for interviews, your portfolio?
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things, and I'm sure every state and university has, but it's that portfolio to get the licensure. So in Vermont, these students are working on their Vermont licensure portfolio while they're doing internships. So I'm preparing them, like they're going to be doing a classroom lesson or a group lesson at some point. They want to get ready to practice getting videotaped in front of a class, have a friend with their phone do a few runs. It might not go well the first time. Getting their evidence, not just for their portfolio, but that's something that they can bring to an internship. To a first job interview where they say, these are the kinds of activities I initiated or developed or was part of while I was an intern. And, interns get on committees, sit in on teams, RTI teams or SIT teams, student intervention teams, take notes, come up with some ideas of what would I do if I was the school counselor in this situation. So that is part of the portfolio that goes with getting the licensure anyway. So yes, students, you'll have to submit your portfolio to your state, but guess what? All that evidence can also be materials to bring to a future interview. So it's not in isolation. It actually will have a long-lasting, impact. The other thing that I was mentioning to my students recently is the power of social media, right? Not just your podcast, but Instagram and Facebook. And ask your schools, do they have an Instagram account? Or even if they don't or don't want to or whatever, follow other schools, other counseling departments on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Get some ideas of what other schools are doing across the country, because that can just make the internship and then the first job even more meaningful experience. Because we like to borrow, steal, ask permission from other ideas. And I just thought there's a bulletin board idea or, anything. Oh, and also ASCA has a great thread called Ask a Scene, where if you have a question or an issue, you can just post that and get some support. Yeah. So that portfolio is not just for licensure for the state, but it's for something to bring to your first interview. So
I think I got my first counseling job because of my portfolio, because I plopped that sucker down on the table. And I think that's what got me my first job.
Yeah. They call it like that takeaway, that when you can leave it. And then now a lot of these portfolios are electronic. So maybe you do want to develop your own website, your own personal website, or maybe a blog, or just something they can, because we know the power of social media. What does your LinkedIn look like? Do you have a LinkedIn? Maybe we don't use it as much in education or in school counseling, but it is a way to build out, your resume.
Yeah. So good. So wise.
Oh, but how did you two get so funny?
Oh.
How did you two first meet?
That was.
We met, and this is funny. Let me say, okay, we met through our job because we were both working for the same school system. But I like to call it a closet funny. Like I am funny on the inside.
Funny.
So every time I meet people, they initially think that I am stuck up or like a snob. Mm-hmm. But really, that's not true at all. And so Kim thought that I was like too cool for school, but really I'm just studying the room and I am observing all the funny, and like there's a party in my head. So Kim and I got put on the same like kind of like committee type thing. And then we discovered that not only did we both believe in ASCA and believe in doing things the right way and stuff like that, but we also have that power to visualize scenarios and then relive them. And like we could tell We could tell a story right now that happened 3 years ago and still laugh just as hard.
Oh yeah.
Person.
I've been part of that.
Yes, you have.
It did not get on to us, but really was in a very sweet way. Like, what are you two laughing about at this meeting?
That was so much fun. I was like crying because I knew there was something. Yeah, well, that's cool. Hey, something else. I mean, I'd love to read. And I hope. I mean, I know you both do as well. But there was a book that I picked up, and I always I just have things sitting around. And have you ever heard of this one called "Humor Seriously"? Why humor is a secret weapon in business and in life. And it's co-authored by 2 women. One, Dr. Jennifer Aker is Stanford Graduate School of Business. Naomi Bagdonis, she's lecturer at Stanford Business. So these are co-authored. And just the importance of humor in our workplace. And that's, school counseling. Rewarding, stressful, demanding, and it can be a whole lot of fun. And you want to get your tribe, get your people around you that make you laugh.
Yeah.
And like when I saw Nancy and Doris, we were laughing again at all the situations that happen, and we need that because
it's the best.
It's
like
our
to be with your friends and to be able to laugh with your friends like you did with your mentors. It's just a great coping skill.
It's our coping skill for sure.
It's a great coping skill. So
like a good laugh.
we encourage laughter. So we will have to get that book, Laura.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll send it to you.
We'd love to read. No, we read all the time. Goodness gracious. You're so sweet, Maureen. I'll send it to you.
Gosh, I want to be like Maureen. Well,
thank you.
Any other questions for us?
I don't think so, but thank you so much for inviting me to be part of it.
She has a great podcast.
Yes, tell us about your podcast.
So my daughter Maggie and I started a podcast a few years ago, and it's called What's Your Take? And it's a mother-daughter duo. And I honestly thought I was going to get fired at one point because she's like, Mom, when are we going to do the next episode? Like you two are super organized. And, and my daughter was like, Mom. Anyway, I'm like, so don't fire me. But anyway, I love it. So she is the driver of the podcast. And I give her really the credit. I'm like the accommodating sidekick. But we talk about kind of all things, all things, whatever's going on. So Maggie is talking about, I'm so proud of her. She's actually in New York City now. She found her roommate through social media. She found her jobs. She does social media marketing. She works with a few different companies, and she's in this fashion photography, social media world, and she loves the podcast. And I'll tell her I'm on this one. She'll be like, hey, but so we have fun doing that. And she posts questions on Instagram, like listen to our latest podcast and what do you think? Like, what's the way that maybe you cope, or just whatever topic it is. But it's that generational, like what's my take? What's her take? And
that's great.
I am so glad. I'm going to have to figure it out because she's in New York and living the New York City life that you do when you're 25 years old, right?
How fun.
Her bedroom is the size of this Zoom screen, literally.
I bet.
I'm super proud of her. So yeah.
That's awesome.
That's fun.
It sounds like you've got a lot of things going. I know you've got a lot of things going.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah. So
it's all good.
A lot of things. Yeah.
Keeps us going, keeps us young. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you too again. Yeah.
I know
we love you, and anything we can ever do for you, let us know, because you're one of our favorite people. Seriously, we just admire you and respect you so much.
Thank you so much.
So
you're so sweet.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're the best.
I love her. Is she not the best?
She is the best. She really is the sweet. I cannot imagine having her as your,
I know.
I imagine how sweet she is with us.
She's so patient with us.
She's so patient. Did you say patient?
I did.
That is exactly the word. She just thinks and she likes, at least she
She gets us. She gets it.
Gets
There's
us.
no way we could have stopped laughing that one day that we should have gotten in trouble. There was
have been in big trouble. I guess I know people out here listening have been in those situations where you really do not need to laugh. Do not laugh because this is not an appropriate time to laugh. And you
that
cannot.
makes it worse.
Everybody's been there
Yeah.
where you're like, you're just starting to sweat a little bit because you're like, I've got to laugh. This is so funny. And then
If somebody had offered me $5 million that day to stop laughing, I could not.
I would have still laughed.
It's
just the fall out where you're falling out.
Yeah.
You're laughing. You cannot help it. So and those are the best. They're the worst because you're trying so hard and you're starting to get that panicky, sweaty feeling, but you cannot help it. You're still laughing.
Yeah.
So Laura, tell me, what have you been doing during your couple of days off this long weekend?
Well, we got passes last year to Dollywood.
Jolene.
Gosh, you sound just like her.
I thought that I did. And I know the Dolly songs too. That's the one most familiar.
Yeah. So we go up there every chance we get. And so we went up there, and I would like to tell you a story about what happened our last trip up there.
Please tell me.
Okay. So we stayed at a hotel with a fantastic pool, and I've got two girls. So
was it the Dolly Hotel? Was it the Dolly Hotel?
We stayed there this time.
Okay.
This is not where we stayed last time, but the Dolly Hotel is just the best ever. But anyway, so whatever hotel we stayed at last time had a great pool with a slide, and my Victoria Bell, my 7-year-old, she wanted to swim, but my little one wanted to stay at Dollywood and ride rides. So I had told my Victoria Bell, I said, when we get finished riding rides, we'll go swim. So Victoria Bell, we're standing in line, and she all of a sudden says she's sick at her stomach. But I was like, I am not going to be manipulated. We are not.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen that parental will not be manipulated by my child. Before.
We're not going back to the hotel. Just, you think you can claim a sick day and go back to the hotel and swim? We're not doing it. So I made her ride that ride, and then I made her ride it again and ride it again. So we are walking down the little pathway, and I see her she's not looking right. And she says to me, Mom, I think I'm about to throw up. Well, when she says that, I know I have a 5-second window to get her somewhere.
Over a garbage can. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, there is no garbage can. There is nothing but this Dollywood stream where kids are playing in the stream, and I could not do it there. So I take her and twist her around, and just in the nick of time, she throws up in the flower bed.
Oh,
and, it's bad. And I won't go into detail about how bad it is, but I'm holding her. Imagine me holding her over this fence. She is
enough.
All I'm going to say, I look up, and there is a couple taking like engagement pictures. So now forever, if they look close enough, they will see Victoria Bell throwing up.
Held up, throwing up.
and they'll see my face, like, because when I finally realized it and I looked up, I'm like, shocked. So if you have that picture, if that's you out there listening and you have that picture, please tag us in it, because that's the best.
Oh my goodness. And I know you felt like the worst mother.
I felt awful. Yes. Turns out she wasn't just wanting to go back to the hotel and swim. Turns out she had
a virus. Yeah. Oh, whoopsie. Missed that one.
Yeah.
Well, I have no story.
Okay.
Because I didn't get to go to Dollywood. Okay.
Sorry.
So I did ride my golf cart down the little road here to go to the community parade, which was precious. The little community parade is so sweet. You got the band and you got the ball team, and they drive by and you wave. It lasts 10 seconds. You get lots of candy. And so it was that kind of stuff always just makes me feel really good. in my heart.
That's like all American and just,
It was just really, really sweet. You know.
It's like a country song ought to be made from that scenario.
Yes. So it was really fun. And, we've got a medically fragile child, so I have to be really careful. Please hear my heart when I say I don't get to go to Dollywood.
I hear you. I knew exactly what you were saying. Yeah.
But I want you to go and have a good time and then talk to me about it. I just live vicariously through you. But this was something we could get out and do, all of us, and see everybody. And it was just a lot of, because it was outdoors and beautiful day. So it was really good. It was really good. And right now I've got ribs on the Barbie. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means. Was that Australian sounding?
I think
ribs on the Barbie.
Yeah.
And we have some hamburgers and ribs and all that kind of stuff. So
I'll be over in about 15 minutes.
Okay. Wrap this thing up because I just thought of ribs.
You can join us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group, Counselor Accents Group. You can find us on Instagram at Counselor Accents. And is there anything else we have? You can like and subscribe to our podcast. What we'd really like for you to do is rate and review us, because that's how other people find our podcast. Oh, and you can join our first 20 days. It is a self-paced, independent course that takes you through all of the things, whether it's your first year or your 21st year. We say that the first 20 days is the perfect way to make sure you feel organized and prepared for the upcoming year.
Well said, my friend.